Welcome to IH Talks. I'm Chiara from International House Palermo, and today we are talking about bringing the world to the classroom with Milena Montalbano. The general subject of this talk is help students develop confidence, skills, through the use of TED Talks and show and tell sessions.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Chiara. My name is Milena Montalbano. I'm Director of Studies at International House Team Lingue in the north of Italy, near Como.
So, Milena, tell us why you think we should be talking about TED Talks and show and tell in the wild classrooms.
Thank you. Yes, that's a good specification because we have used TED Talks and show and tell in our young learners and teenage classrooms, so not with adults yet. And we have decided to try these two elements, partly for a cultural reason. Show and tell is something that all Italian students will have seen on television and films, but don't really know what it is. And so we wanted them to try out. And this was for young learners. So from ages 6 to 11-ish, more or less. And for teenagers, we went for a slightly more developed type of show and tell, a proper speech with TED Talks, which is a format that many of us are familiar with and very difficult to master because it's all about public speaking, which is one element that we really want to develop. And the other element is critical thinking, or actually, rather than critical thinking, which is very generic, it's about creating ideas, So the claim of TED Talks is generating new ideas, which are worth spreading. So that's where we started from. So it's not just about presenting. So there's these two elements that we really wanted to try and develop and introduce, but in a very natural way. So we've started to introduce this project in all of our year-long classes in our schools last year. So we have completed year 2 this year, and it's been very successful. Although the outcomes maybe are not the ones that we expected at the start. As usual, when you work with students, there's always the nice new things that that develop and come out of your projects. And it's been very successful. And what we didn't expect, which is fantastic, was all the hype around it that the students really felt and started creating. Because for the first time in our school life, all the students were involved in a similar project at the same time of the year. So every student in our classes, regardless of the ages, had the opportunity to work on a similar thing, and they knew that everyone else in the other classes were working on the same thing, whether they were 6 or 15, which created a lot of curiosity and a lot of interest and engagement, which is the most relevant thing. So that at the end, when all the students presented their talks to each other, there was a lot of interest, which was something we hadn't expected, which was very beneficial because it really, really gave motivation. And this engagement motivation are the main objectives that we always try to reach in our classes. So we covered that through a project that is common to everyone. Obviously, the other outcomes are also linguistic. So
that should be what we aim.
Linguistic, and you mentioned confidence, which was the reason why we started this project to start with. We wanted students to be a little bit more comfortable speaking a language that they don't necessarily master in front of other people. So we started off in the safe environment or their classroom with the practices, and then we took the students outside of their comfort zone a little bit, still in a protected environment because it's our school with their teachers and with students that they can sort of relate to. But they did have to take that extra step. And along the way, we tried to develop not only linguistic skills, but also those elements that make a public speech engaging. So trying to look at your audience, stand straight, bring your voice to the back of the room, all these elements that we're trying to start introducing.
Okay, so what I find really interesting is that the whole school is involved, like all of the age groups, all of the teachers. That certainly creates a sense of community, but it also seems quite hard to organize. So which tips would you give to a center who would like to develop this project?
That's what I thought at the start, because it was me trying to organize everything and putting everything together. The best thing I would probably say is start with a session with all your teachers that are involved, at least most of them, whether they're experienced or not, and present the project and explain, and also, if necessary, train the teachers to those areas of the project that they might not be familiar with, whether it is setting up a project, which is important. So explain what the stages of project are and explain what the stages of those particular projects are. We have a framework, we have posters that we created on purpose, we have all sorts of signs and things. And then start with a couple teachers that are either a little bit more forthcoming or enthusiastic about the idea. So maybe start the project a little bit sooner than everyone else with a couple teachers that can then pass on the information. So the best thing I could say is train up at the start and then leave it to the teachers to train themselves and swap tips and activities. And then from one year to the next, the more experienced teachers will train up the new ones, will assist them, will mentor them. So it came quite naturally.
That's amazing. Okay, Milena, if I can summarize, you think that introducing TED Talks and show and tell in your classrooms was a very successful experience because it helped students develop their confidence, their skills, their critical thinking, but also, and that's quite important as well, their language. Okay, so this brings to an end to our IH talk today, and thank you very much, Milena, for your time.
Thank you. Goodbye.